Curious choice of intro music.
It's like a Western.
I am delighted by our guests for our fireside chat this morning. Secretary Ash Carter is a former United States Secretary of Defense and the current director of the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at the Harvard Kennedy School, where he leads the Technology for Public Purpose project. He is also an Innovation Fellow and Corporation member at MIT. For over 35 years, Secretary Carter has leveraged his experience in national security, technology, and innovation to defend the United States and to make a better world. He has done so under presidents of both political parties as well as in the private sector. As Secretary of Defense from 2015 to 2017, Secretary Carter pushed the Pentagon to think outside the five-sided box. He changed the trajectory of his military campaign to deliver ISIS a lasting defeat, designed and executed the strategic pivot to the Asia-Pacific, established a new playbook for the U.S. and NATO to confront Russia's aggression, and launched a national cyber strategy. Secretary Carter also spearheaded improvements in the Department of Defense by developing technological capabilities and transforming the way the department recruits, trains, and retrains quality people. He also opened up positions for women throughout the Department of Defense, and he built bridges to America's technology community. He earned a BA from Yale and a PhD in theoretical physics from Oxford University, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Ash Carter.
Thanks, Gregg.
You're very welcome. So I think it would be best to start really a little bit on your background, because your background is a bit of a curious one for what we normally think of as a Secretary of Defense. You brought a pedigree to your position that includes being a theoretical physicist.
Yes.
You did a postdoc work at MIT. How did your background in science and technology shape your approach to managing the nation's defense infrastructure, and what are the lessons for this audience from that experience?
Well, I think there is a bridge between what I did for all those years and the excellent work that people do here. And it kind of goes like this in my mind, Gregg. How did I get into it in the first place? How did I get into it from theoretical physics to? The generation that trained me in physics was the Manhattan Project generation. And they'd built the bomb, which was what we would call today a disruptive technology. And they were proud of what they had done because it ended World War II and it kept the peace for 50 years. And on the other hand, they also recognized that they'd created an existential danger to humanity. And they felt, and therefore imbued in me, but certainly acted themselves to deal with the downside of the technology they'd created. How'd they do that? They invented arms control, missile defense, civil defense, non-proliferation. And they came from all over the political spectrum at that side, but they were turning their political talents to how do you keep humanity safe from this thing. And they taught me that with knowledge comes responsibility. And that was kind of in the air and in the blood. I say that because the generation that came after me had a different ethos that was more libertarian and so forth, and I respect that. But it was different, and you see that reflected in the digital world in which a lot of innovation was done that was, to my way of thinking, too heedless of consequence. But that wasn't me. And so when I was given an opportunity, and you may all have had zigs and zags like this in your lives too, just 1 year, Gregg, just 1 year. You've worked in defense too, for which I'm very grateful, and thank you for doing that. I don't know, and it may have happened to you also. So they said, Ash, just come to Washington for 1 year. We need a scientist to work on a problem of great importance. And I said, well, all right, I'll take 1 year off from my academic career. And I went there, and two things came together for me. One was that this was a really important problem. I won't bother you with what it was. It was an old Cold War problem that's not relevant now. But the other was that my being there, my being in the room, made a difference. And for a young person doing something, being in the midst of something consequential where your contribution really matters, that's what a that's what motivates us, right? That's what we really want. And those two things came together for me. And so that began, I first walked into the Pentagon in 1981, and I walked out 2 years ago. So it wasn't 1 year. It was a long time, but that was the connection. And I think people here are doing something also. People who are in the field of caring for other human beings, there's an ethical dimension to the mission right off the bat. And so a lot of what I tried to apply in science as a scientist to protecting our people, which is my job, and destroying our enemies when necessary, and trying to make the world a better place, is the kind of thinking that I think goes on here. It has ethics built in to innovation. And as we talk about AI today and so forth, I think that's what we can talk about fruitfully, that makes a connection between how I was trying to think about it in one seemingly very different field, to what you all are doing. They're really not all that different, because we have morals as our grounding.
So I'd like to explore that a little bit more, because you made a number of incredibly important decisions as Secretary of Defense, but one of them I thought that was especially important for this audience was you issued a directive that said that any application of machine-assisted weaponry involving the use of lethal force shall have a human being involved in decision-making. Yes. So what was your thought process behind that directive, and what are the lessons that you have for healthcare?
That was back in 2012, believe it or not. Nobody else was thinking about this now, but it is the question I was most frequently asked years later when I was Secretary of Defense. And it's important because I put myself in the following situation, which I can easily imagine. It is the night before we have conducted, let us say, an airstrike. And that has inadvertently taken the lives of women and children. And I go out in front of the cameras the next morning, and they say, well, who's responsible? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know how it happened. The machine did it. It was an autonomous weapon that did it. You can't do that. You can't do that as Secretary of Defense. I'd be barbecued for doing that. I'm responsible for it. We are responsible for it. I can't escape that. I shouldn't be able to escape that. I have a moral responsibility to know how the hell it happened that innocent human life was taken as I was trying to accomplish my mission. And so I didn't think it was acceptable to have true total autonomy when it came to the use of lethal force. And so what does that mean? So you guys are the same way, right? You're not going to allow AI to dictate to you important decisions about providing health care unless you have some understanding of how the heck it got to that conclusion. It's okay if you're just selling ads.
But we're not just selling ads.
But you're not just selling ads. You're taking care of people. I'm waging war. And it's not a game. And so, and I think there's a lot that can be done. And I think that the tradecraft of, all right, how do you get that done? What does that mean for design of AI systems in defense and in medicine? What does it mean for assessment of data in defense? And so we can talk about that. But I think how we achieve ethical application of AI is actually a point of commonality between my world and your world.
On that ethical application of AI, we've talked previously about the notion of it's about the data, about the underlying data, it's about the algorithms, but you also introduced me to this concept of countermeasures for moral error. And I think that there's, again, a powerful concept there for all of us in healthcare as well, as we try to harness this incredible new technology and at the same time ensure that we don't use it for purposes other than which it was intended.
Yeah, this is part of the how-to, because if your all heads are going up and down and you're saying, I get it, I need to do this in the right way, how do you do that? If I can say something about the algorithms and the data
That'd be
first.
great. Terrific.
First of all, as far as algorithms are concerned, whatever they use, whatever methodology they use, I have had, and you may have had, people come to you who have algorithms and wish to get you to apply them, and you say, well, give me an example and unpack that decision. And they say, well, it isn't designed in such a way that it's possible to backtrack. My answer to that is, I ain't buying your chili until you tell me how you can do that. And if you haven't designed that into your algorithm, you better go back and do it. I've run technical programs for 35 years, Gregg, and I've had engineers tell me they can't do things that they don't want to do for a long time. And you have to send them back and say, no, for our application, I can't use it.
I'm really glad you're sending these messages out to this audience. Thank you.
Unless you got to build in something that helps me explain in human terms whether I'm talking to a family member over something that has happened, or whether I'm in a courtroom defending my actions and the actions of my healthcare system. You need to have an explanation that's going to fly in a human way. And if that isn't built into your algorithm, I believe it can be, but it isn't automatic. It's got to be a design criteria. And then you get to the data and you say, where did you get this information and why should I believe it? Because it's a fallacy to think that quantity of data adds up to quality. I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. If it's just a big bunch of stuff, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You can. Somebody has to explain how this is a good decision that comes out of this, that the data is itself not skewed and biased. And it sounds mundane, but it's a big problem when you get to big. And then the third thing I think is that I think there's going to be a market, just as there was in cyber defense. There's cyber offense and there's cyber defense. Progress in technology aids both sides. And I want to be on the defense side, and I want to be the firstest with the mostest, as Lyndon Johnson used to say, with the countermeasures. Same thing in AI. Take a fake imagery. Well, you can train AI to detect fake imagery also, just as fast. And take it down, or put a little beacon next to it that says this has been manipulated. In some way. So the very same technology that creates the dilemma for humanity can be turned around and be part of the solution too. And I think that's important. And I see few companies, but I think there are going to be a lot of companies who are dedicated to the countermeasures mission, just like there are companies dedicated to cyber defense and not cyber offense. Same technology, but for the good guys, so to speak, good guys, gals.
Yeah, and I think that's an incredibly powerful concept for this audience, because the truth of the matter is that we worry about the integrity of the data. We worry about erroneous information, and that notion that we can actually use AI to help root that out is really powerful. How are organizations, and this is really based on your experience in the Pentagon, how do you incorporate responsibility, accountability, integrity? How do you build all those in? Your directive is one strong message, but how do you build those into an organization? How are we going to make sure that we are in a position that we are organizationally structured correctly, both on a structure basis and on a policy basis, to deal with the challenges and all the opportunities that are going to come with artificial intelligence?
I like the question, because I really care about, and I think it's a leader's job to model and insist upon proper conduct and comportment. And I had millions of people out there, kids that are 18 years old, and it may be out of fashion in today's Washington, but I think you need to behave yourself when you're in a position of public responsibility.
Thank you.
It's terribly important. It's terribly important. And I got young people out there that I'm putting in a situation where they can do serious wrong. And they don't know right and wrong exactly. You have to tell them. what it is, right up through our senior officers who know what to do and need to know that you'll back them up when they do the right thing, that you expect them to do the right thing, and that you'll back them up. And I fired people regularly for things that, for lying, hate speech, adultery, which is in the military is a transgression of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, sexual assault, all this stuff, that was not on. It wasn't that it didn't happen in the military, it does. But when it did, we jumped on it, I jumped on it very hard. And I've really tried to model conduct for these soldiers, sailors, airmen. Let me give you a trivial example. If I visited, let's say, Afghanistan, many times Afghanistan, I would, of course, see the leaders of the country. I'd talk to our military leaders, how we're doing in the campaign and so, but I always talk to troops. Talk to several hundred troops, you shake all their hands, and it'd be 120 degrees, and I'd be dressed just like this. And my staff would come up and say, Mr. Secretary, you can take your jacket off, and the troops would say, hey, Mr. Secretary, it's just us. You don't have to be. And I said, nope, I'm going to stand out here in this suit, and here's the reason. That I'm going to shake this kid's hand, and they're going to take a picture of it. And that picture is going to be sent home to his mother, her mother. And she's going to frame it and put it on the mantle or put it next to her bed. And she doesn't know the Secretary of Defense from Adam. That doesn't matter. But that's her child. And I want it to look right for her. She deserves that. She deserves, I need to look like a secretary. She may not know who Ash Carter is or even care, but you got to look like it. So I would stand out there in the sunshine and shake hand after hand after, because it was the right thing to do, because that told that kid's mother that somebody that looked kind of like a nice person was taking care of their son and was responsible for the orders for him. So I think it's important to stand for things to look like you're behaving properly and behave properly and be scrupulous yourself, but also stick up for people. If people, you've got to model it and by sticking up for people who are doing the right, reinforce what's good. We had a good culture generally in the military. It was the profession of arms, honor and trust. That's a good place to start. You all have the whole tradition of care. That's a huge foundation.
I think it goes without saying that one of the issues that people would love to hear from you about, and I've heard this from the audience as well, is what are the lessons that you can share with us from the Department of Defense and from your prior work looking at security of data, and what it is that we could learn in healthcare about some of the challenges you faced, some of the things you wish you did differently, and a little bit more about what you think healthcare needs to do going forward.
Well, thanks, Greg. I'm sort of laughing a little bit. I'm flattered that you think we're better than might have something to teach you.
I certainly hope so.
Well, I mean, think about the Defense Department, though. We're no different from a big enterprise of any kind in the following sense. We have lots of different networks. We have hundreds of networks of all vintages and all makes, some inherently less secure than others, all of which need to be linked together. We have a force that is abjectly dependent upon, by this time in history, upon the performance of that network. And I can't, sitting here right now, assure you that we are capable of protecting it. We spend a lot of money on it. We work really hard on it. We do offense too, so we know what's possible. I had the National Security Agency that's run by the Defense Department. So I ran and managed that, and then we have another 100,000 IT people in the department. So 50,000 in NSA, 100,000 in the department as a whole, a lot of people. Not all of them are cybersecurity experts, but a huge amount of information and a huge amount of data. And so I liken us in that sense. It is a huge mountain to climb. And the answer is since the problem with cybersecurity is that there are lots of pieces to good hygiene. There are passive defenses, active defenses. You all know this. Most of these are sold to you box by box by different vendors. And you put them in your racks, and your IT person puts them in the rack, and you hope for the best. There has been no one who has yet branded an overall systems solution for an enterprise, the way, let's say, SAP will do enterprise for you. Enterprise security, believe it or not, in a multi-hundreds of billions of dollars industry, still not yet been achieved. And many of you may be part of big enough healthcare systems that you can afford to have good people and you can afford to spend a lot of money on it. If you're a smaller enterprise or doctor's office or something like that, there's no way that you can have the best hygiene because it's not widely available. So I think there's a tradecraft issue here, which is a big market opportunity for somebody who can fill that in cybersecurity. We know what a lot of the elements of good hygiene are. And what I did, believe it or not, Gregg, was call everybody in, and I used to do this on Saturdays, which they hated. The chiefs of the military services, the heads of the major commands and so forth. And they had a little chart, which was each one of them was a column, and each row was one of the things that you do for, two-factor authentication. Sure. It's trivial stuff. And I said, I want to see every little box green for everybody. And it's your responsibility as a leader to make that box green. And they all looked at me and I was, oh my God, I'm going to be in here every Saturday until my boxes are green. And sure enough, and it's not rocket science, but it's good hygiene. That doesn't make you perfect, but it's good enough for the couch potato who's trying to hack you. You want to get to the high-end Russians and Chinese, that's going to be harder. But you can take care of a lot of the threat to your patience and your integrity and your reputation. But it's unfortunately right now kind of retail work.
Yeah. It's a challenge we share. We're thinking just again into the future, where are we going to get the intellectual firepower? Where are we going to get the workforce that's going to be able to both tackle very complex content, healthcare, national defense, and at the same time leverage artificial intelligence? And maybe reflect a little bit about what you're doing in the private sector as part of that.
Yeah, it's part of the answer is training young people and the next generation. And before I jump to that, I want to remind you that we're in a world of lifelong learning. The idea that we all get educated until we're 20-something and then live off of that for the next 50 years is preposterous. And everybody in this room is constantly learning. That's why you're here. But it's not organized, it's not credentialed. I think so part of my answer is older people are going to be, because there are going to be a lot of us. And if we're not all sick and you aren't all taking care of us, which is going to be a big challenge for you and a huge opportunity, I guess you call it that, for healthcare, those of us who are not so old and sick, we're still an asset. And so retraining people who have the subtlety that comes with a lifetime of experience and learning, which no 20-year-old or 25-year-old could possibly have. I think that's an important human resource. But let's get to the younger people. And what do you tell a younger person to do? Obviously, I never took social science courses when I was in college. I don't know about you, Gregg, but
I did.
I thought it was not a waste of my tuition, but I took either history and language or science because I figured that I was not going to learn Latin by reading the newspaper, and I wasn't going to learn differential equations by reading the newspaper, but I could learn political science by reading the newspaper. Maybe that's wrong, but that was my attitude at the time. And you hear people ask now, we're supposed to teach our kids coding, and I'm not on that. So I think studies are now beginning to correct that impression, and employers are beginning to recognize that kids who are liberal arts majors or more widely educated make better employees. They have that plasticity and the human touch, and you can teach them to code. And coding is not really all that interesting. I was a physicist. We always used to say that people who didn't make it in physics ended up in computer science. That was what we said. So I think that we're getting better understanding of what makes a productive, lifelong human. We're still learning what that is, but part of it is continuing education for which people in the course of their life. And as far as setting a kid off at the right direction is concerned, I'm for breadth. I really am. And I love teaching because students are, to me, like soldiers. You look into those faces and you're all in for them. And it's a small thing. You're not going to change somebody's life, but you give them a little nudge. And so they were going this way, and you give them a little nudge, and now they're going that way. But think about that 30 years later. That's a pretty big distance. And you can say, I did that. That's another, you can be Secretary of Defense. I'm proud of that. And I was able to do something there. But teaching is another way of giving back.
That's terrific. What are the things that keep you up at night? What are the things, when you're thinking about artificial intelligence and how it's being applied across many sectors, defense, manufacturing, now healthcare, what are the things that you worry about? What keeps you up at night?
I'm going to give you a non-defense answer. I was obviously asked a lot as Secretary of Defense. My standard answer, by the way, was that I'm up at night. I'm up all night so that you're not up all night. That's my job.
Thank you for that.
Well, I'm supposed to protect you, and you're supposed to feel protected. And soldiers would say to me every once in a while, they don't seem to understand what we do. Most Americans don't seem to appreciate what we do. And I said, all right, you're right, and I don't like that either, and that can be unfair and everything. But take it this way: if we're doing our job, they're not paying any attention to us, because our job is so that they can go to sleep at night, sleep soundly, wake up in the morning, kiss their kids, go off to school, go to work, live their lives, dream their dreams, and somebody isn't destroying them. That's our job. So the better we do our job, the more they'll take us for granted. And it's a funny paradox that's involved in the security business. But that's what I was all about, is protecting people. If you ask me now, in the world at large, here are the things that it's the march of technology, which I love and I'm part of, and I think is unstoppable. It is unstoppable, but it can be shaped to human purpose, and we're not doing a good job of that. Take the digital domain. Look at social media curation, for example. It's a huge problem of where, yes, commerce and community are done by social media, but so also are darkness and hatred and untruth and so forth. And all that is being purveyed by the innovators themselves in a way that I think doesn't contain the ethic that I was talking about, that I believe has to be part of national security, has to be part of healthcare. It ought to be part of social media too, but it's not. And we all know something's wrong, and we need to fix that. Now take that, Gregg, to the biotech revolution that is underway and to come. If we end up in the same place with that, which is 20 years into the widespread deployment of the technology in a manner which is basically heedless or amoral, we're going to be in real trouble. And the other thing that keeps me up at night is that technology is working for lots of people, but there are other people for whom it's not working. And there are citizens too, and we can't have a cohesive society if a lot of people feel that there's a fast lane and they're in the slow lane, and they don't see a path ahead to make their lives better and their children's lives better. We can't keep the society together with that dynamic. And that's the other thing that I think is really important, and that's about jobs, and it's about retraining, which technology can do a lot for. Yes, technology is going to change jobs and take jobs, and yeah, it'll create some jobs too, but there's all this turmoil for people, and they're going to need to be trained to do new things. Technology can help in that. It's a little bit like countermeasures. Technology can get on both sides of the equation. But that bothers me, that there are a lot of people and technologists who are all excited about technology and stuff, and I love that, but they're not really looking outside. They're not looking at the people who are not in the mainstream and not sharing that. I think that's a time bomb for us, and it's a moral affront to me. I don't like it. I'm in the fast lane. I'm perfectly happy, but I don't like to see that, and I'd like to be on the side of making those who are benefiting more numerous.
Yeah, well, I would say that you really kind of gave a raison d'etre for your Institute for Technology and Public Purpose. What's the most exciting thing that you're working on there right now?
We're working on this very problem of application of AI, but also social media curation. We've got to land this plane. If you saw, I always take the Mark Zuckerberg hearings as an example. So there is somebody who operates the most influential of many, but the most influential social media company, and there's the United States Senate, and you say to yourself, here could be a moment where history is made. But it was a dud on both sides. He, I think, did okay for the day, but not for the great arc of history in terms of taking responsibility and showing a path ahead for his technology. The committee, what I like to say is, I wish they had always been so ill-informed when they were questioning me about world affairs. And so it bombed. Now think of an alternative in which everybody agreed at that hearing that some mixture of self-regulation by social media and informed regulation by government was needed. But they never really, there were no particulars. What's the second sentence after that? Is that an 80-20 mix, a 20-80 mix? And so there was an implicit answer, but they didn't have anything to go with. We need to move this forward. So we're working on those mixes, 20-80, 80-20, give people some choice. But we all know that has to happen. So let's roll up our sleeves, and so the next time there's a hearing, you could say, here are 3 things you can discuss there. Ask the CEO, do they, on balance, favor this one, this one, this one, this one? There are presidential candidates with their own, they're all going to come out with their own proposals. What's that going to be based on? And we really need to get this going. And I'm trying to engineer some alternatives that people can discuss and debate and land this plane, because we have to do it. And if we learn how to do things like that, every time we learn by corralling one technology, it helps us when the next one comes along. So when that biotech revolution is, which it will be, as big and portentous as the digital revolution, we can look back on the digital revolution like I looked back on the Manhattan Project generation and get a little bit of inspiration and a little sense of how to make this go okay. So we can have the good from technology without all the bad that can come with it. I think that's possible, but we got to work at it.
Let's all work on it together. So, Secretary Carter, thank you so much for spending some time with us here today, but most of all, thanking you for your service and allowing us to sleep well at night.
Thank you very much. And same to you, Gregg.
Awesome.